रोलिंग मेरे बाल ठीक है?
कौन से बाल है? कहाँ बाल आपके?
Welcome to PowerDrift. Today we have India's latest 250cc ADV, the Benelli TRK 251, and in this video we'll talk about what this motorcycle is and why you should think about buying it or not buying it. But before we go ahead, I'd like you to hit subscribe and the bell notification icon, and please do watch the video till the end, where I would want you to hit the like and the share button. Here are the top 5 things you need to know about the Benelli TRK 251. Well, first, in terms of specification, this is not going to be a very impressive motorcycle. So on paper, the Benelli makes 4 point something bhp less than the 250 Adventure, 3 Newton meters less than the KTM 250 Adventure. It's got a larger tank, but when you add it up and you take curb weight, it also makes this motorcycle heavier than the 250 Adventure. But it's not an engine that likes to be pushed, because, for example, even in the city, you're in a high gear, you're holding 3,500 revs, there is some amount of vibration in the handlebar. Try to go harder, there may not be any vibration up here, but your pegs are almost always vibrating, and in that sense, it's a pleasant motorcycle, but Benelli have a lot of ground to cover in terms of refinement on this motorcycle. The gearbox on this particular motorcycle, we are almost 700 kilometers in. This is a test bike, which means a lot of journalists have taken this motorcycle and done performance testing on it. But it still is an extremely reluctant gearbox, and there's a lot of effort required to change gears. So in that sense, the powertrain, I'm going to say Benelli has quite a lot of work to do here, and that's before you account for the fact that it's not the most powerful 250cc engine you can buy. The next question is it an ADV at all? And honestly, that is an easy question to answer, because I would say this is a street bike wearing ADV clothes more or less the same way that the CB200X from Honda does. What are the clues? Well, if you look at the suspension travel, these are effectively street bike numbers. And that immediately segues to the ride quality of this motorcycle, which is on the firm side. It's not uncomfortable, but I do think this could be a lot more pliant, a lot more supple, and that would make this motorcycle's experience a lot more interesting. But it's not just the lack of suspension travel. It also wears 17-inch alloys at the front and the rear, and it also has Metzeler's M5's good tires. But effectively, it very clearly tells you that what it wants to be is a street bike, and on a commute this would be a rather pleasant option. On the highway, if you can deal with the vibration, it's not that bad a highway bike, but there are better options than this. So question number 3 becomes, is it value for money? And unfortunately, the third answer is a no as well, because at 2.51 lakh rupees, I'm very glad Benelli priced it there, because it's very easy to remember the price of this motorcycle. This is the TRK 251, and it's priced at 2.51 lakhs ex-showroom Delhi. But at that price, it's about 15,000 rupees more expensive than the KTM 250 Adventure. And the KTM 250 Adventure not only has more power and torque, but it also has more features than this motorcycle, which begs the question, what was Benelli thinking when they priced this motorcycle? Because as pleasant as it is, it's becoming, as you can see, more and more difficult to see why this motorcycle should be purchased. So question number 4 obviously is, if you had to buy a TRK 251, what are the 2 or 3 things that you're looking for that would justify this purchase? And honestly, it's not a big list. The biggest advantage of the TRK 251 is that the handling is actually quite nice, and it feels like a natural street bike would. So in that sense, you don't really have to put an effort into cornering it. Dealing with city traffic and all that is pretty easy. And the seat height at 800 mm is quite a bit lower than, for example, the 250 Adventure or the X-Pulse, and that makes it an easy motorcycle to ride, even if you're of a short stature. But remember, I always say this, if you're short and you decide you can't ride a certain motorcycle because the saddle height is too high, you're painting yourself into a corner that you cannot escape. The way to change that is to just say, that's one more thing that I have to figure out how to deal with a tall motorcycle. And globally, short riders ride tall motorcycles all the time, so it can be done. If they can do it, you can certainly do it. So the last question becomes, what is this motorcycle really for? And it's a really difficult question to answer. because this is a fairly pleasant street bike. And if this was priced 30,000 rupees less or 50,000 rupees less, I could still say that at least on the money front, this is a decent purchase. But as it stands today, there are motorcycles like the 250 Adventure which offer a lot more performance, a lot more space, and if you're going touring, space is crucial because you want to put luggage, eventually you'll want a pillion. There's a lot more that you can do with your money if you buy a 250 Adventure from KTM instead. But the motorcycle I think this motorcycle would compete with and get beaten by quite a large margin is the Himalayan, because the Himalayan will go off-roading, which this one will find difficult to do because of the front wheel size. The Himalayan is a very nice highway bike today. This one will vibrate more than the Himalayan, and therefore the story of the TRK 251 is actually a pretty weak proposition. To Benelli, I would say reevaluate the price of this motorcycle if you can, and do work on the powertrain's refinement, because if the engine just didn't vibrate as much as it does today, there'd be a lot more of a positive experience when you took a test ride. And once you take a test ride, convincing customers to part with their money is a lot simpler. But as it stands today, the TRK 251, it's a pleasant motorcycle, don't get me wrong, but in the market that it enters, it's priced higher than competition which offers more power and more torque, or other motorcycles like the Himalayan which have a lot more capability. So why should you buy the TRK 251? Well, I'll leave that to you. Leave us a comment. Thank you so much for watching. This is PowerDrift. This is the TRK 251. If you'd still like to see a comparison with this motorcycle versus the Himalayan or the 250 Adventure, do leave us a comment and do tell us what you thought of the motorcycle, because you clearly now know what I thought of the motorcycle. Thank you so much for watching. Now's the time to hit the thumbs up and share this video with your friends. Thank you. क्या बोल रहा था तू मेरे बालों के बारे में बे? हाँ?